Ladies and gentlemen, shall we all give our peace as we welcome the arrival of His Excellency the Governor of Real Estate, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, President.
Because the reason, for our gathering here today and the people being specially posted. Today's event is for us to render what looks like a final account of stewardship. My former speech is contained on page 7 of the program, and at your time, please find time to go through it. But what I will say at this point is that I've used the word final. Rendering of account, being conscious of 2 things. One, the fact that His Excellency Governor Babatunde Fashola, for his first day in office, had committed himself to rendering an account of stewardship every 100 days. And that was why the MC had to remind all of us that it is 1,096 days. In another few days, on the 2nd of June 2010, which is Wednesday, 1,100 days in office since this administration has been performing wonders in Lagos to the glory of God and the support of all of you. And of course, on that day, we're going to be hosting members of the diplomatic community in Nigeria, and of course, leaders and heads of the various development organizations. And till May 29, 2011, we will continue to render an account of that commitment to every 100 days. However, it was global tradition in Nigeria, which is to commemorate every 29th of May. Today, throughout the country, will mark the final day. Because by the 29th of May 2011, what this country will be witnessing again by God's grace is the inauguration of new government. I therefore welcome all of you to the final rendering of accounts on an annual
colleagues in the state public service, our spiritual leaders, distinguished senators of the Federal Republic. As I welcome you all to this 3rd anniversary of the tenure of our administration, I would like to start by recalling the promise I made to Lagosians in my inaugural address on May 29, 2007, when I said, quote, I want to assure you that you have chosen a government that cares, a government with a clear vision of where we are, where we want to be, a government with a clear, compelling purpose from which its priorities shall logically flow. End of quote. For the past few weeks, my colleagues in government, honorable commissioners, special advisors, permanent secretaries, directors and special assistants have been briefing you, as they have done year on year since 2007, about what we have been doing with your resources to make life better in fulfillment of that promise. I stand here very proudly and fulfilled to conclude those briefings that commemorate the 3rd anniversary of our services to Lagosians as we hit 1,096 days and 26,304 hours of our stewardship. This leaves us with 322 days, representing 7,728 hours of service ahead of us to render to you. I assure you that we are not tired, we remain committed, and we hold your trust in our abilities most invaluable. I assert without equivocation that we have fulfilled our promises and performed our part of the social contract. We have shown that democracy can be contentful and successful in Nigeria, because in every part of the state that you go, whether in the 3 senatorial districts, the 27 federal and 40 state House of Assembly constituencies, all the 57 local government and local council development areas of Lagos State, you will see the imprimatur of our efforts. No section of our state, whether rural or urban, has been left untouched, even as we acknowledge that there remains a lot ahead to do. This takes us to the strategy, which I must here restate. Permit me to explain that while we are impacting the most urgent needs, according priorities dictated by our people during the local government tour of 2007, and within the limits of our resources against competing demands, we have evolved a clear strategy of how our state should develop, based on the 10-point agenda, the manifesto of our party, the Action Congress, and a clear understanding of the problems, with the resolve not to firefight, but to be methodical in achieving that plan of an orderly and sustainable development. We understood unarguably that the lack of infrastructure occasioned by many years of political instability and lack of continuity of government and policy had created desperate conditions. More vehicles have been bought, more children have been born, more graduates have been produced, but no new roads, new schools, new hospitals, new markets, and similar amenities were being built at the same pace of demand. We resolved therefore to direct public spending at providing infrastructure as a deliberate strategy for poverty alleviation. From that infrastructure provision, we have engineered tremendous growth in direct jobs created at the work site, to boosting the supply chain of inputs of building materials and supporting efficient operation of businesses. We have employed more people into the public service to service the increasing population. The result has been more motorable roads, restoration of ferry services, new hospitals, new schools, increased water supply, street signages, traffic lights, new markets, effective waste management, improved security, emergency and toll-free lines, a reformed civil service, increased employment, and a renewed hope and belief in the ability of government to respond to our people's needs. In the process, the government, formed on the sound welfareist and progressive principles of the Action Congress, has exploded many myths and actualized seeming impossibilities. In the areas of the environment, Lagos is cleaner, contrary to the belief that it was impossible to manage its waste. Thousands of jobs have been created from an increasing private sector participation in waste management and disposal, and opportunities for expansion are still emerging. We have successfully combated flooding in places that it was thought impossible to do so. The Badada Expressway flooding has been resolved. Dolphin Estate and Obalende flooding has been resolved. Victoria Island and Ikoyi flooding from the Barbage is now fully under control. The famous river route in Idiaraba is now history. We are still working in other difficult parts of the state, and we expect to be successful. Green spaces and beautiful parks have become things that Lagosians can now take for granted, contrary to the belief that Lagos was a concrete jungle. We imploded the partially collapsed Bank of Industry building without damage to any building or loss of any life. This was the first of its kind. This was the first of its kind in West Africa, contrary to the belief that it would not be done. With regards to security, Lagos is now safer than many other cities with its population size globally, and violent crime has dropped by over 70%. And there was no successful bank robbery in Lagos in the last 3 years. All of this was contrary to the belief that Lagos was an irredeemably crime-infested state. Street lights now